Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the SR2 and Darwin Drive Intersection Improvements Project Virtual Workshop. I have with me today Sesame Bide, the project engineer, and myself, I'm Andrew Short, the project manager. Matt Vincent and Jerry Lovell are both project supervisors. Then we have Matt Buckley, who works with our traffic studies section. And I would like to thank Representative Osinski for joining us. Today, we're going to look at the project need, some of the crash data and traffic history. We're going to look at the proposed history for the project and quickly review the project schedule and answer all questions at the end. So the project is located at SR2 and Darwin Drive. It's situated between Harmony Road and Red Mill Road. The main project need is to close the median crossovers because of a high crash risk. This was identified as a safety project, part of the hazard elimination program. And we're going to be increasing the insufficient U-turn length on eastbound SR2 at Harmony Road. I'm going to let Matt Buckley talk about some of the traffic impacts and crash history.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to kind of clear the air and just make sure that we don't go out on the offensive here and try and pick fights with anyone or any specific neighborhoods or businesses for that matter. So Andrew alluded to a recent hazard elimination program safety study. It's a federal safety study where we actually screen the entire state. So unfortunately, the crossover here at Darwin Drive is the fourth worst unsignalized intersection in the state. And that list is about 20,000 unsignalized intersections long. Just to kind of give an order of magnitude, the other Darwin Drive intersection along Red Mill Road, kind of a little bit farther southwest, is ranked about 2,800. So Darwin Drive at Capital Trail is actually the #1 safety unsignalized intersection in Newcastle County as well. A lot of this can be attributed crash history-wise back to about 2012. When the Wawa and the strip, or the shopping center, the strip mall there opened. It's primarily a crash problem that occurs, not surprisingly, during the AM rush and then also during the PM rush hours. The bar chart that we're showing here is indicative of pretty much all the popular movements to and from the Popeyes and the Wawa, leading to, unfortunately, to angle crashes. The orange is the eastbound through traffic striking northbound left turns, leaving Darwin Drive to head towards Newark. Those same northbound left turns are also being struck by motorists in the westbound direction. That's the blue or the teal. And then the purple is actually eastbound traffic striking westbound left turns to head onto Darwin Drive. This is relatively common when we look at crossovers along busy highways such as Route 2. And unfortunately, it really doesn't lead us into favoring one direction versus the other. All directions or all movements kind of to and from Darwin Drive at that crossover can arguably be viewed as problematic. Heading eastbound, to no one's surprise, or unless you're really unfamiliar with the area, but heading eastbound as you travel through the Brewster signal, there is a slight crest, and that could be attributing to some of the sight distance and angle crash problems. You also have a lot of queuing that's spilling back from the Harmony Road signal. This is really the sole remaining crossover along Capital Trail in this stretch. When you zoom out, you can really see that we really there are no unsignalized crossovers until you get as far west of Possum Park Road at the Possum Park Apartments. And then in terms of actually allowing all movements at crossovers along Capital Trail, you have to go all the way to All Saints at the Kirkwood Library. The Newark Farmers Market, that one has channelization to prevent side streets from cutting across. Same with the Western YMCA, where it only permits lefts and U-turns. So when we study this from a safety standpoint, we looked at the traffic numbers, and really the intent here is to utilize the signals and the turn pockets that are provided eastbound at Harmony Road, as well as westbound at the Brewster Drive. Andrew, back to you.
Thanks, Matt. So look at the proposed improvements. The first major one is to close the crossover. And in doing so, we'll be able to lengthen the left turn lane on westbound SR2 towards Brewster Drive and the U-turn lane on eastbound SR2 towards Harmony. We're going to be reconstructing the median on Darwin Drive and also reconstructing the pedestrian connections and crossing along Darwin Drive. We can take a look at the schedule. We're expected to begin construction in 2022, later this year. Thank you everyone for attending. We have included the project website. You can either use that information or go to the del.gov/projects portal and search the project number or SR2 and Darwin Drive. Comments can be sent via the online survey at the project website or email to the DOT PR email address provided or mail directly to del.dot at the address below. Other questions we're prepared to answer now that have been submitted through the Q&A portal. Thank you. And after we answer the questions, we'll probably go through the presentation one more time and then another round of questions.
Andrew, I can take this first question from Mary Beth. Hi, Mary Beth. The U-turns are actually signed as no U-turn heading westbound, but Andrew's showing his screen, or we're showing the board where, believe it or not, we have in the evening we have as many as 50 people already violating that U-turn.
We're looking at, Lynn asked about the time of construction. We're expecting to take about 2 months for the construction.
I guess another question regarding the U-turns. Ray, the crash history is not strictly U-turning traffic. It's actually northbound left turns leaving the neighborhood, as well as westbound left turns coming into the neighborhood to then, arguably turn into, either go into the neighborhood or to turn left into Popeyes and Wawa. Yeah, you are correct, Ray. The numbers are, in the dozens of U-turns during the peak hours, and that's kind of what we're showing here, is that we had 28 illegal U-turns in the morning and 50 during the evening.
Lynn has asked about the lane closures. We're expecting to do a lane shift for the maintenance of traffic, so there will be no lane closures in the eastbound direction. We may have a lane closure at night in the westbound direction.
I guess, Mary Beth, you had a question as well about the U-turn crash history. Once again, they're left turns leaving the neighborhood, cutting across, as well as left turns entering the neighborhood. So enforcing the no U-turn, strictly enforcing the U-turn will not make a significant difference in terms of the crash history. Mary Beth, I think you had a follow-up question about whether or not we considered a traffic signal. Has a light at this intersection been considered? Yes, that's certainly something that we looked at. It's just operationally, it just won't work. The spacing's too tight, and then arguably when you look at kind of the indicator here of you already have people making illegal U-turns. Some of those folks are just bypassing the left turn lane at Harmony Road. Instead of patiently waiting there to turn, they're then coming down to the crossover to see if they can beat the light. Bob D, you have a question. Will this, it keeps jumping. Sorry. Will this push traffic down to Sycamore Gardens in front of the Rite Aid? Yes. The answer is that if you're presently making a left turn into the neighborhood and traveling westbound, you would then use the left turn pocket or the U-turn at Brewster, or some of those people would turn, if they're trying to access the Wawa, they would turn at Harmony and travel south on Harmony to come into the shopping center that way. The fact that the crossover itself is presently unsignalized kind of makes for some people to view that as the easy way in.
So I think, Ray, I think you've asked a couple of questions, more kind of in generally speaking to, to the I guess, the inconvenience of, the new motion once the project's completed. I'll just kind of say generally that, I think we understand the issue and the concern of the inconvenience of having that longer route. Certainly is not something that we've taken lightly or have not considered all those potential issues. I think this is one where, the obvious safety issue is really the driving factor here. So I think we acknowledge that it's certainly an inconvenience to have to take that longer route to get to the same place. But again, the safety issue, and again, like Matt said earlier, most of this kind of came about when, the Wawa and some of that development came in. But we also have to look at the issues and the safety impacts that we're seeing right now. And like Matt said, there was the HEP study done there. So again, we have to kind of balance those needs and acknowledge that there is that safety issue there. So again, just want to make that acknowledgement that it's not something that we come in and are looking to inconvenience anyone. We really have to balance the travel times and the distance versus the safety issue.
Bob, I believe you're referring to the wait time at the light to turn westbound left onto Brewster. I mean, there are ways for us to provide more green time for a left arrow. And as Andrew pointed out, the portion of this project is going to extend that turn pocket to handle that additional traffic. So we're able to give more time to a green light. But what we're not really able to engineer very well are these crossovers, because it's kind of, whoever is more aggressive usually takes the gap. So it's something that we're aware of as we transfer more traffic. And that's what we certainly looked at, was what happens when this crossover is closed? Where will people ultimately go? Will they turn in advance at Harmony Road to access Wawa potentially? Or will they come down at Brewster? So that's why we're providing a longer storage pocket for that queuing to turn left, but then we can also make signal timing adjustments so that you can turn left, or you can make a U-turn to come back to Darwin Drive. Ray, we did not look at a signal removal at Brewster Drive. To be frank, the queuing associated with Harmony Road signal doesn't really work well at all in the spacing with Darwin Drive to signalize it.
So Ray, I guess just one last note. I think we're about to kind of run the presentation one more time for everyone. I kind of saw your note on Main Street, Newark. I think we also have to take into account that there are different, obviously different uses, different classifications of roadway. So again, I think Matt and his group do a lot of studies in terms of when signals are warranted and what factors go into that. So something to keep in mind. Again, I understand that there's a lot of folks within the neighborhood that aren't happy and aren't going to be happy about some of these modifications. But again, we're just trying to balance the safety and the convenience for everyone.
All right. I'm going to run through the presentation one more time. We'll have another session of questions and answers at the end. And I just wanted to thank everyone for attending, again, the SR2 and Darwin Drive virtual workshop. Myself, I'm the project manager, Andrew Short. We also have with us the project engineer, Sesame Bide, and then Matthew Vincent and Jerry Lovell, our project supervisors, and Matt Buckley, who works with our traffic study section. And again, I wanted to thank Representative Oshinsky for joining us today. We're going to look at the existing conditions of the site. We're going to look at the traffic data and crash history. We're going to look at our proposed improvements, quickly review the project schedule, and then, like I said, another session of questions and answers at the end. So the project is located at 2 and Darwin Drive, as everyone's aware. It is located between Brewster Drive and Harmony Road. This project was identified as a safety project through the Hazard Elimination Program. The main need of the project is to close the crossover on SR2, and in doing so, we'll be able to increase the insufficient U-turn length at SR2 and Harmony Road. So Matt can take a look at the traffic information one more time.
All right, just to kind of hit rewind here on Andrew's brief introduction of what we looked at under the previous safety studies. The crossover Darwin Drive is unfortunately the fourth worst unsignalized intersection in the state out of a list of about 20,000 unsignalized intersections. It's the number one from a safety perspective unsignalized intersection in Newcastle County. Just for perspective, Darwin at Red Mill is ranked about 2,800. A lot of the problems do attribute back to when the Wawa opened, as well as the strip mall in 2012. It's primarily a crash problem that occurs during the AM and evening rush hours, when traffic, not surprisingly, is heaviest to and from the Wawa and the Popeyes and the strip mall there. About 80 to 90% of that traffic that enters and leaves Darwin Drive collectively is either destined or originates from the Popeyes and Wawa collectively. When you look at kind of the factors that go into potentially causing some problems, eastbound, there's a slight crest curve as you go through the Brewster Drive intersection that can restrict your sight lines. And then we obviously have the queuing and the weaving associated with Wawa and the busy right turn to head on to Harmony Road. So when we look at the traffic numbers, there's certainly a high percentage of illegal U-turns. Most of you have commented on that as well. Those people are generally either impatient westbound drivers that don't want to wait for the light at Harmony Road, so they come down, they gamble that a police officer's not there, and they whip a U-turn, or they're U-turning traffic that makes that U-turn to head into Wawa unknowingly, and they violate the sign instead of turning left onto Darwin to then use kind of the side access over by Popeyes. So when we look at those traffic numbers, there are ways to divert or to mitigate where that traffic will go to. If you're heading westbound, you would arguably go down to the Brewster Drive traffic signal and make a U-turn or a left turn there. And then heading eastbound, if you're leaving Darwin Drive to turn left to head to Newark, then you would make a right in this instance and make a U-turn at the Harmony Road signal. Back to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Matt. So we'll look at the proposed conditions. The main modification is going to be to close the crossover at SR2 and Darwin Drive. And in doing so, we'll be able to increase the queue lengths at westbound SR2 and Brewster, as well as the U-turn at SR2 and Harmony Road. We'll be reconstructing the median on Darwin Drive, as well as the crosswalks and the pedestrian crossings along that intersection. The project schedule, we're expecting it to be a 2-month construction time and begin in either summer or fall of 22. Thank you everyone for attending. You can access the project website at the link below. You can also go through the del.gov/projects portal, search the project number or SR2 and Darwin Drive. You can send your comments via the online survey at the website. You can email them to our DOTPR email address, or you can mail them directly to del.dot at the address below. Now we are prepared to take another round of questions if anyone has anything else they'd like to contribute.
So Bob D, I saw your question. I think we got started on the second round of the presentation before we had a chance to answer yours. So I apologize for not getting into that. I wonder if you can elaborate. I'm trying to sort out which movement you're talking about. If you're talking about the turn directly into the Wawa and kind of cutting through to Darwin, or I guess the turns onto Capital Trail from Harmony and then onto Darwin. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. But if you're able to elaborate on that, we can chat on that a bit.
So I know there's been some comments or some questions about the illegal U-turns contributing to the crashes. I just quickly queried the 2020 and 2021 crash history, and there was one of those crashes out of seven of the T-bones. So 1 out of 7 did involve a U-turning vehicle. And then the prior data that I looked at did not indicate any of those illegal U-turns resulting in angle crashes.
So I think the bottom line is enforcement out there would be nice. But ultimately it doesn't sound like that's the primary cause for the safety issues. And again, Bob, if you're still on with us, again, either if you can type in a little bit more detail for what you're looking at there. Alternatively, you can reach out to us after the workshop, and we can discuss in a little more detail what your question. I'm just not sure. I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're looking for.
This
Okay.
presentation will also be posted to the project website. And I believe the video transcript will also be posted to the Del.Dot YouTube page if anyone wants to view it after the fact. And our question and comment session through the web portal will be active until February 12th. So if anything else comes up, you are very free to offer comments.
Matt, I have a question. You said that they're reconfiguring the island at not Brewster, but can you put the map? Could you put the drawing up there again? Yeah, on Darwin, you said you're going to reconfigure the island. I know there's a mailbox there because we've had an issue with that with the post office. Is that still going to be accessible?
So you're talking about the one kind of farther back. It looks like probably almost back to where if you're looking at the drawing we have, probably where the E and Drive is, or even a little bit farther back, it looks like.
Yes.
I believe we can have those discussions to make sure that's still accessible. Right now, I don't think any of our modifications will be going back that far. But we'll certainly take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Matt, you're pretty good with the data and the studies. How much traffic from Newkirk Estates do you think will be diverted to Brewster to exit and turn left to head to Newark?
There's 2 Matts, so I'm assuming that's me, Ed.
Yes, Matt Buck.
So when we look at the traffic numbers here, roughly 80 to 90% of this traffic is associated with the Wawa and the Popeyes. So it's not overwhelming numbers from the neighborhood. I think ultimately it depends on kind of where you live relative to Darwin, and whether or not it's still more convenient for you to come out and make a right turn and then access the U-turn pocket to make a U-turn at Harmony, or if it's more convenient for you to kind of take the more circuitous route to then turn out of Brewster. The benefit here of having kind of the again circuitous or long way out to go Darwin to then kind of McCain. Let me Andrew, can I share my screen, please?
Hey, while Matt's doing that, Representative, just want to let you know that as far as the mailbox goes, the improvements to the island that we're doing are really just flaring it out. So the right up at the intersection, you kind of get guided to make a right in or right out, as opposed to now where, it's open where you can go straight, but it tapers in rather quickly. So there should be no impact to the mailbox down near where that crossover is.
So Ed, what I was trying to allude to is like the fact that it is such a long way to get out of Newkirk Estates to then get over to Sycamore Gardens. It kind of helps us, it reassures us that the Wawa and the Popeyes traffic isn't going to become this kind of overwhelming neighborhood cut through problem. Most Wawa and Popeyes patrons will elect to kind of make a right turn out and then access this U-turn
Okay.
to then head west.
I'm also a little concerned that some that are traveling, I guess that's west to city of Newark, instead of turning at Brewster, making a U-turn to come back to Darwin, would utilize turning left onto Harmony Road and cut through these parking lots. Do you see, I mean, I think there may be a lot of cut through traffic through this Wawa and the shopping center and Popeyes.
I'm gonna,
yeah.
so we know that we have a high percentage of illegal U-turns here
Mhm.
because it's more convenient and quicker to utilize the crossover than it is to wait for the signal to turn left at Harmony. So if you don't catch this, the left turn westbound at Harmony is green arrow only. So if you don't catch that green arrow, you're going to have to wait, half the cycle to get back to get serviced. So when you travel down to Brewster, you actually can turn, it's a permissive left. So you can turn left either on green arrow or green ball. So it is arguably, one block farther west, but it is a more convenient U-turn and left turn to make in front of Sycamore Gardens. The other thing is, I utilize, call me guilty, I've never cut through this crossover, especially making the left turn out, but I utilize the Wawa a lot. And there is a path of heavy resistance just kind of maneuvering through this whole complex. It's the parking stalls, especially when you get to the kind of the strip mall area, pardon the term, the shopping center. But when you turn in here, you kind of have people backing in and out. So I don't see this being a very wide open Wawa convenient type of spot to kind of zip through to cut through.
Well,
My hunch is that the people that are presently right now making a left turn here or making a U-turn, some of those people, they know where Wawa is, they know where Popeyes is, they will elect to make a left turn at Harmony to then come in. So we'll see this number increase.
Well, I know I've heard complaints for years about the U-turn issue. It's unfortunate that no matter how many signs they install, and when they occasionally do some enforcement, it hasn't been often, but they have occasionally done or tried to do enforcement. It hasn't slowed it down. I did hear from a few constituents, residents of Newkirk, that was pleased that this is finally happening. But I also know some that head west to Newark from Darwin will be inconvenienced to now have to go up and make a U-turn. But I understand the safety issues are high there, and I'm hoping things will not be as bad as some are projecting. But I don't know of any other alternatives to address this. Yet with a light at Brewster and a light at Harmony, I know I have other sections in my district where there's been requests for traffic lights, and I know DelDOT has a pretty hard stance on putting them too closely together. And I think most drivers agree, you don't want to be stopping at every entrance to a community. You'd be tacking on a lot of times to your commute every day if every community that wanted a red light got a red light. So I do understand that also. So that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add a little commentary, when 15 years ago, we kind of faced similar resistance and similar concerns with closing the crossover at Upper Pike Creek Road. And when you look at kind of the amount of traffic that used to utilize that crossover, and I think we reassured ourselves as well as a lot of the concerned people in the area that, when the dust settles, it's a slight inconvenience for a whole lot of safety. And that's if you want to make a U-turn, if you wanted to make a left turn at Upper Pike Creek, you now make the U-turn at Green Valley to access it. And it's comparable here, but in this instance, the block spacing between Harmony and Green Valley is much larger and much longer than it is at Brewster and Darwin. And just the amount of, when we look at the amount of traffic, I know there was some commentary about why can't we remove this signal here and put it at Darwin. There's actually about double the amount of traffic exiting at Brewster in the morning, especially, than the neighborhood traffic leaving at Darwin.
All right, Andrew, I think if there's, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So I think we can probably go ahead and wrap things up.
Yep. Yeah. If I could just share my screen one more time to throw the thank you and informational slide up, just so everyone can see that one more time. Again, you can submit questions up and through February 12th through the online portal, or you can email them directly or send them directly to us. Thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you, Representative Oshinsky, for showing. Please, if you have any more comments or questions, send them to us. Thank you again, everybody.